The pandemic has shown us why multiple streams of income has become a necessity. On today's show, I have a conversation with Qinisile Dlamini to discuss another way of making passive income through Airbnb without owning property.
Hey, we're good luck.
And you're watching Joburgtoday.
Qinisile, welcome and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Now, you are an Airbnb without property coach.
That's correct.
Why did you go into this line of business?
So I started with the whole Airbnb business when I was down and out. I obviously had tried previous businesses and they had failed, leaving me in a very desperate position. I was broke, I was homeless, and I had just moved into an apartment that was decent looking. Started furnishing it slowly, and I had a visitor come over and they mentioned something about it feeling like a hotel. And suddenly the idea just sparked. I always knew about the whole Airbnb idea, but I never gave it a shot. So that same day I went downstairs to building management and asked, would it be okay if I, ran my own apartment as an Airbnb? And surprisingly, they said yes, and that's where it all started.
Now, would you say that this is a good investment within the South African economy?
Yes, I absolutely would. A lot of people are traveling to South Africa. A lot of people are moving around South Africa for business, for leisure, and they need spaces to stay. And yes, hotels are an option, but I think people are moving more towards private spaces. That's what Airbnb does for them. And also traveling in groups as well allows them to stay together and still have that sort of family setup or group dynamic in one space while they're traveling. So Airbnbs are definitely booming. So I would definitely recommend everyone getting into it as soon as they can.
So a question I'm sure viewers are asking themselves right about now, how do you actually start this line of business?
Well, I do have a masterclass where I'll go into a bit more depth on it. It is a 3-hour class, but for the sake of the interview, let's just give the basics. There's 2 ways of doing it. Either you could manage someone else's space. For example, if they have a property that's fully furnished but vacant, you could manage their space and then you guys can obviously split the percentages on the profits. Or you can rent out a space and then get permission to use it for your Airbnb business. That's 2 ways that I teach in the class. Both of them does not require you to own any property.
Mm-hmm. And then what are the requirements then one would need to meet in order to start?
So just basics. In order to be an Airbnb host, you at least have to be over the age of 18. Mm-hmm. And then apart from that, if you're going to do the route of renting spaces, then normal rental expectations, qualifying for the lease, paying a deposit, first month's rent, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas if you do the other one where you're managing someone else's space, then there aren't any requirements. And that's why that one is so great for students, people who are unemployed, people who don't have capital to furnish an entire apartment.
What are some of the challenges you have encountered along your journey?
You know what? I wouldn't say there are many challenges. I think there's just a lot of learning opportunities. Learning how to manage guests better, learning how to be a better host. But for the most part, I think it's such a great business because it's easy. It runs itself. So I wouldn't say there are many challenges that I've faced, to be honest, yeah.
You have quite an interesting backstory that I want us to get into at this present moment. Can you tell us a bit about before you got into the Airbnb business? Can you tell us a bit about that story?
So I grew up in an orphanage. I have always been very aware of my my background and the fact that I'm starting off on the back foot, right? Other people might have parents to support and all that sort of stuff, but I knew I was on my own for the most part. There's obviously people who have, contributed to raising me, but for the most part, I was on my own. And that made me hyper independent. I've always been very entrepreneurial, tried out many business ideas and many of them failed. So before I got into the Airbnb one, I was running a CMT company and that failed dismally, left me homeless, broke, in debt, and I still got up and tried, gave something another try, and I stumbled upon the Airbnb idea, and it led me here.
You did mention that you have started a lot of other businesses that you dabbled into, but they didn't quite work out. Can you name some of those businesses?
Okay, so we had the CMT. In college, I was actually teaching people. I studied interior design, and there was a program that we had to to do for our projects. A lot of the students didn't understand it, but I caught on pretty quickly. So I was mentoring them, and they were paying me. I was making little bags for people at church. What else did I do? I sold perfumes. I can't even remember all of them. I just know it's a lot.
Yeah.
And aside from trying different businesses, I also worked in different spaces as well. I worked at Truids, I worked at Spur, I worked in hair salons, just trying everything to make money. And I think working in those spaces made me realize I don't want to work for people. I want to be my own boss. And then, yeah, started with the entrepreneurship.
Within this Airbnb space,
Yeah.
you were able to reach R1 million at the age of 25.
I did.
That is extremely inspirational. Tell us a
tell
bit
us.
about that.
Don't tell SARS. Yeah, I made my first million. It wasn't even planned. It just happened by chance, and I think it came mostly because I was doing what I love, which is teaching people how they can also help themselves. Because as you heard from my story, starting this Airbnb thing really got me out of a bad situation. So I started teaching people and started helping, obviously, getting a lot of support, getting in terms of bookings, getting a lot of support in terms of students as well. And ultimately, one day I just checked my bank statements and it was like, ta-da!
That is so beautiful. But what happens in a case now where you have someone that is hosting a property and then there's damage to that property? Are there policies that are put in place?
Yes, actually, Airbnb covers all hosts for damages and theft caused to the property by the guest up to the value of $1 million. But we talk about how to claim and all the whole procedure in the class.
Qinisile, tell us a bit about your class then. How can people join that platform? How can they be a part of it if they'd like to be a part of it?
All right, so I do free masterclasses every Wednesday and every Sunday. The classes are online on Zoom. So all they need to do if they want to join the class, go to my Instagram, send me a DM and we'll send you the link to the free masterclass.
Thank you so much for your time, Qinisile.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.